I know it's way too early to be making rash conclusions to trades like this. But at the end of the day, we have to wait years for Frank Nazar III in Chicago to prove us wrong in this sentiment right here. The Kirby Dach trade, so far, is looking like a pretty big fleece. And it's only been about... Okay, it's been a few months since the actual trade went down, but it's only really been like a month and a bit of regular season action, and already it's easy to see why these conclusions are sort of being made, because man oh man, Kirby Dach, this guy is the absolute real deal, and when it comes to everything that Chicago wanted this guy to be, we are seeing that and more with Dach and the way he's been playing with the Montreal Canadiens. Let's just go over the statistical profile, we'll go over the numbers, we'll go over what Dach was supposed to be and how exactly he is fulfilling that today. Kirby Dach, as we had said, ever since he was drafted in 2019, 3rd overall by Chicago. 6'2", 201, a big guy, right-handed center. He's a passing, playmaking wizard. Or at least, that's what he was supposed to be. He was taken out of the WHL in sort of the next Ryan Getzlaf-ish sort of mold, and we had made so many videos talking about the same thing, you know, playmaking, soft hands, big guy, etc., etc. You don't really need that nail to be hammered any more further, but either way, Kirby Dach was supposed to be that good. It's just his first few seasons in Chicago were riddled with a few stretches of unlucky play. He didn't produce all too much in his first season, but that's okay, he was only 18. The next few years, though, were filled with a little bit of misfortune. He missed a good chunk of a season due to a World Juniors injury that he sustained, and when he did return the next year, he definitely was not in that territory that Blackhawks fans wanted him to be a part of. He had a really good season in 2020-2021 when he returned from that World Junior injury, but he only played 18 games. So, the 10-point sample that he was able to accomplish was not really the biggest indicator of growth in the right direction. You just kind of had to hope that that sort of point production would carry forward into the next few years. Last year for Chicago, Dach had 26 points in 70 games played, and that is not great. And you could definitely see it in the way Chicago fans were treating this guy. A lot of them said, okay, we know he's not producing, but we know there's sort of more than meets the eye here. We always knew that Dach was a talented dude. It's just the circumstances as to how the Chicago Blackhawks are playing him and just the overall confidence level, it's not really the best there. I mean, he had chances to play with Patrick Kane and DeBrincat. It's just he didn't make use of them. And so, when Kirby Dach was inevitably traded because the Chicago Blackhawks went through a fire sale this previous draft period, you saw Chicago fans pick him up and try to treat this guy right. And so far, that's kind of what he's been doing. He's been playing with Suzuki and Caulfield, and throughout the 14 games he has had, Kirby Dach has 12 points, 4 goals, 8 assists, and he is already just, 14 points away from matching his career high from last season, and he's got, 82 minus 14, I'm really bad at mental math, 68 games to do so, 68 more games to get 14 points and shatter his career high. He's on pace for 70 total points. He's on pace for 20 goals. He's on pace for 47 assists. Kirby Dach is only 21 years old. It took him a while to get here, but he finally is here. And all of a sudden, for the Chicago Blackhawks, I can see a lot of Blackhawks fans on my timeline mostly just wishing the guy well. I don't think anybody is really regretting the trade at this exact moment because, based off of what I'm gathering, most Blackhawk fans are just kind of relieved and happy that the guy is actually able to play and be an effective point producer. It's more so of a thing where it's like, yeah, it's kind of upsetting that he wasn't able to do that with us, but at the same time, he kind of needed this. He needed this more than anybody. The change of scenery, the mental reset, the rejuvenation, the opportunity to play with good, talented players. At the end of the day, the one who's benefiting the most out of this trade isn't Montreal, it isn't Chicago, it's Kirby Dach himself. And the question as to whether or not he would have been able to play this well with Chicago this early on is always going to be a hypothetical that we think about as his career goes on. But at the end of the day, the Montreal Canadiens sent over a draft pick or two for Kirby Dach, and Frank Nazar III, the guy that Chicago took with that 13th overall pick, that was sent over from Montreal, that was acquired from the Islanders in the Alexander Romanov trade. I mean, the Blackhawks kind of went through a hard reset themselves with the prospects, and they wanted to really undo everything that Stan Bowman did, so I guess it makes sense on paper. It's just, darn, Kirby Dach is this good, and he became this good only a few months after the draft came by. For sure, right now it's easy for Blackhawks fans to say, yeah, no, I'm happy for the guy, good thing he's able to actually get his head on straight and play well, but, I mean, if the end of the season comes around and the guy produces 75 points, who knows how easy it's going to be to make those judgments while not biting your tongue, cursing under your breath that Kirby Dach just wasn't able to do that for you. And unfortunately, for those keeping up with Frank Nazar's development in the Michigan Wolverine system, the guy hasn't played a game yet. He had a surgery around the end of October that's going to sideline him for a long time. So yeah, Chicago fans, you guys are kind of getting the short end of the stick here in all areas. Kirby Dach is gone, he's now playing really well, and the guy that you pretty much got in return for him is not playing at all. So that kind of is the unfortunate part about this whole thing. But I guess going back over to Montreal and acknowledging what Kirby Dach is, it's kind of wild that he has been pretty much the third best player on the team for their forward core, behind Suzuki and Caulfield, and now, since he just threw them all on a line together, it's working out very well. We already talked about this in a prior video, but the entire time, when Kirby Dach was playing on other lines, he did pretty much feel like the best player outside of Suzuki and Caulfield, so just loading up the best forwards on the team on one line, I mean, it's pretty easy to see why that strategy works. It's just long-term, actually not even long-term, but just like in the next few weeks, I'm looking forward to seeing how well the rest of the Canadiens forward core is going to be able to create offense and do all the things that we need them to do, play their depth roles well, etc., while the Kirby Dach, Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki line goes out there and gets all the goals because they've been doing a lot of that the past few days. So for Kirby Dach, this is the step in the right direction that we have all been hoping for. We wanted to see this ever since the guy came back from that World Junior injury. Okay, he'd been off to a slow start. At the end of the day, he was taken behind Hughes and Kakko, and those guys are kind of struggling too. Jack Hughes isn't really struggling anymore. Kaapo Kakko is. So Dach still has realistic room for opportunity to grow and showcase to us that he probably was worth taking third overall. It's just his 2021-2022 hadn't really done that at all for Chicago. And then you have the entire Jesperi Kotkaniemi thing that had been brought up as well. We had made a video about that too. This has been such a great story for Montreal. Say what you want about Christian Dvorak, but the replacement of the third overall Kotkaniemi, the Kirby Dach acquisition, Frank Nazar, the draft last season, it's been kind of going perfectly for the Habs. And part of that obviously has to do with Dach himself, him improving and getting his head on straight, but at the same time, Kent Hughes, you genius MFer, you going out there doing your thing, please keep it up. We'll see what other trades the Montreal Canadiens have in store. Tell in the comments your thoughts about Kirby Dach and the Fleece, how this appears on paper so far for the Chicago Blackhawks as well as the Habs. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.